All right, another great podcast today. Super excited to have my guest on, Miss Allison Anderson. And Allison, you have quite a long resume of things that you do that you specialize in. And I'm going to read off a few of these. However, I guarantee I'm probably missing at least one or two. So let's just get to some of the core ones here. You have a website or a subject title, which is Embrace the Face, which is your primary,
That is my
kind of,
business. Yes, my business.
yes, embrace the face. Nurse, Reiki master, quantum healing guide, ancient healing techniques uh, extraordinaire, I might just say. Also, working with ancient healing, DNA repair, Ayurvedic, skilled background, Akashic Records, knowledgeable, going to retrieve information. I know I forgot a few, but with all that being said, that's quite a bit of stuff. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Sean.
So, one of the things that I like to do is I like to kind of dive deep and get into, what it was that kind of got you into this field and some of the things that you kind of experienced maybe growing up. And, when you're tapping into Akashic Records and some of these things, um, for me, that's all vibration. And some people are tuned into that vibrational frequency and can get in and access that. Everybody has the ability to, but some people are gifted where they're more tuned in to some of those skills and some of those abilities at an early age. So if you would kind of tell us a little bit about your upbringing and what kind of brought you into the field and some of the experiences that you had along the way.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, so I don't even know where to start because I have a pretty crazy story. So I'll start with I remember being little, being about 7, 8 years old, and being outside with my cousin playing basketball, and like we saw the ground moving. We would see the concrete moving. And I remember I would see things that other people wouldn't see, or I would hear things, and I do like double takes a lot because I thought I'd hear something. I would tell people and I would be told like, it's fine, Allie, like you're fine. You're not, we don't talk about these things kind of thing. My mother is Jewish, my father is Catholic, and I grew up, my brothers and I were baptized, but we were never like pulled toward one religion or another. And at 13, I felt this presence of, looking back, I feel it was either like the Blessed Mother or Mary Magdalene. There was always this like nurturing, divinely feminine presence. And I always felt very lost. I felt like I had a connection to extraterrestrials. I'd lay in bed at night and I always felt like a presence. I'd look at the stars, I'd look at the sky. I always knew that there was something more. So at 13, also, mind you, I'm a triple Aquarius. I found this out. So I'm a sun, moon, rising Aquarius with Mercury in my first house. So it makes a lot of sense about who I am, and my perception and my way of thinking and living. So at 13, I decided to have my sacraments made. And I had my communion and confirmation, and I always felt a connection, but I never really went back to church. I became a typical teenager, always seeing and hearing things, but always being made to feel like I couldn't look into it further. I didn't know anybody else like that. I would have dreams and things would happen. I would think of somebody that I hadn't thought of in so long, and then they would like pop back into my life. People would die. We'd have like family members or friends die, and they would come to me in my dreams like immediately, and I would tell my mom. So like I always just had these things, but as I was a teenager, I shut down. My ego took over, and I lost who I was, and I totally forgot why I was supposed to be here on this earth. And that had been a battle for a very long time. I was telling you before recording, my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, was an electrophysiotherapist. He was a quantum healer. He wore quantum healing patches in like the 90s. He wrote many textbooks that are in many languages around the world. Physical therapists know him. He started a physical therapy school on Long Island. He was always into quantum healing, and we always used to talk about these things, around like 16 years old, and then he passed when I was 18. And I always feel like he has been with me, guiding me, especially more so now, in the world of quantum physics. And I'm going to lead up to it. So, I basically, my life, I became a nurse. I always knew I wanted to be a nurse. My grandfather always encouraged me, said I could help change the world if I wanted to. Um, and I just went through the motions, right? I went through the motions of life. I became a nurse at 21, bought my first house at 22, had a child at 23, suffered from severe postpartum depression and anxiety, drank myself through the next decade. I would, George Thorogood, the song I Drink Alone, that was me. I would go out and have a good time, but I would go home and I would drown out everything, in my pity and woes. And I finally sought help for postpartum anxiety and depression after my second child, because my husband forced me to. And I was just thrown band-aids of pharmaceuticals. At 27, I started having GI symptoms, was diagnosed later on with gastroparesis, esophageal dysmotility, autonomic neuropathy, neurogenic bladder, migraines, small fiber neuropathy. I almost died from a GI bleed. I had a total out of body experience, where I came back in 2019, January of 2019, knowing that nothing was ever going to be the same. I woke up in the ICU. My husband's aura, my nurse's aura was there. Fast forward after the pandemic, I was working during the pandemic. I left in October of 21 to work on my own self healing. I was walking with a cane at that point. All this like neurodegenerative, went to Mayo Clinic, spent thousands of dollars trying to figure out what was wrong with me, had the gamut of testing, like Western medicine, renowned testing, genetic testing. And I was getting these little answers here and there, like, oh, yeah, you have this and you have that. And, everything. I was on over 10 pharmaceuticals. I had two young children. I was repeating cycles that I did not want to repeat. And in 2018, just prior to my near death experience, I started meditating. And I feel like that was like that one little decision I made to play this one meditation tape for 8 weeks, every single night for 8 weeks, changed my whole life. Like I went from calling myself a piece of shit to telling myself I loved myself, and my whole world opened up. And when I left corporate healthcare in October of 21 to work on my self healing, I ended up ascending. I ended up healing. I'm off every single pharmaceutical. 4 years later, I left in October 21. We're now in May of 2025. I'm on zero pharmaceutical medications. My small fiber neuropathy biopsy just came back normal. It has my hobby, my catharsis was blogging, my journey starting in 2022. I quit drinking January 1st of 21. I launched a podcast January 1st of 23. January 1st of 25, I just started really opening up about who I am and what I'm doing in the world. I want others to know that I don't know if I can curse on here, but the mind fuck of Western medicine,
Mm-hmm.
and how it can make you feel like it's all in your head. And while, we could go down that route of the mind, body, spirit, body, physical body, there was something to be said about I had to get out of my own way. And I had to shed all of these layers. And I had to literally go back to within to learn who I was, why I'm here, what is my point, and how am I to be of service now? Like, how am I to be of service? Like when we go through that shame and that fear and that guilt and that lack and that greed, and we move up the Hawkins scale, right? And we get to that point of love at 500 hertz, we want to be of service. So my way of being of service is, I'm just kind of following like my heart and utilizing social media and YouTube and talking about the things that I've learned. I became an initiate of the Modern Mystery School International. There's many locations, but I went to the one in New York City where I learned how to properly astral travel, protect my energy. I learned how to access the Akashic realm. I learned how to guide others into the Akashic realm over the years, where we cut cords and I help clients to find their purpose and to meet their guides and to learn everything, whether it's learning about Ayurveda or quantum healing or metaphysics or just learning about yourself. Like I want to be able to show you that and to show you that there's so much more than Western medicine. There's so much more than the externals of the world. And that I always I always try to preface with others that everything is external besides in that now moment when you are in tune with nothing but your physical senses. Everything else is external. So if you can just bring yourself any now into that now and just be, that's all we need to focus on. And the rest comes too. So Ayurveda has been a huge impact. I know we were talking about that before. And I went to Panchakarma retreats and I've been to learning about the doshas and dharma. And, over the years, you just immerse yourself in your spiritual practice, right? And then you kind of hit that plateau. Like I was meditating for like an hour and a half a day. I channel light language now. Like it's just, it's a whole thing. And you just get to that point where you're like, okay, now what do I do with this? And this is where I am.
I love that. And you know what's so beautiful about the universe is that when you've reached that point, the universe brings people to you that you can basically, they bring those people to you so that, you can be of service. That is really an amazing story. Sometimes the whole concept is, wow, I just stumbled upon this and it was just, all peaches and easy stuff. But, that's pretty intense, going through that, dealing with alcoholism and drinking and the postpartum and all that, that you said that went on for like 10 years.
So I was diagnosed with postpartum anxiety and depression. I think it was just a trigger. I do, I did definitely have anxiety or depression, probably due to the way I was brought up. Like in that, like I just wanted to be independent. I wanted to be an adult my whole life. My parents said I was born to move out of the house. So I think a lot of factors contributed, and it was a long. My son is 13 and just last year, I got off my last medication. So
Wow.
it's been 12, 13 years of seeking help, mental health help.
That is a real victory right there.
Thank
Congratulations.
you. Thank you. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
been a long journey for sure.
Well, and I've said this many times, we call it pain to purpose, where all the challenges and all the things that life has thrown at you has molded you and put you in a position now where you can go in and help others. It's very difficult, in my opinion, not saying it's impossible, but it's very difficult to help people if you cannot relate to some of the things that they're dealing with or haven't had to deal with some of those challenges yourself. And they might not be exactly the same, but when it comes to chemical dependency, when it comes to overcoming health issues, when it comes to a lot of these different things, if it's somebody that's kind of walked the coals, so to speak, that's gone through it and come out on the other side, you have a lot more power and a lot more I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but you just have more strength to guide them in that way because you've had to walk that kind of a path. So, for me, looking at that, I think that actually makes you more qualified, knowing that there's a lot of life experiences that go along with the education of actually learning all these different practices. Uh, for anybody that's out there, can you give us a general description of what is quantum healing or what that means, like with what you do?
Of course. So quantum really just means like the tiny moving particles, right? That we are made of. That and for me, when I describe quantum healing for others, it really just is about getting in that now, and healing what you need to heal in that now. And I feel like I could just say now a million times. So, and it can be different in each now, what you need to heal, what your soul is ready to heal. So for example, a client comes to me one day for needs to heal a issue with her relationship with her mother. So we go in and we heal that now because that is what is heavy on her heart and soul in that now. Or the next week she comes and we need to work on her relationship with her husband, and that is what we work on in that now. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no,
It's
that totally makes sense.
and it's utilizing Albert Einstein says imagination is more important than knowledge, right? So utilizing our consciousness to allow us to astral travel to be able to access cords to cut or going to the Akashic realm. So quantum can also be termed in respect to a realm. So the Akashic realm. We are going in that now to your soul's zone where everything you've ever said, done, or thought is within. So going into that is quantum. Matching your energetic frequency by just visualizing, like taking a moment, right? So like I always tell people, like, okay, take a moment. What is the highest version of you? Like, how do you envision yourself? You booked that client, or you sold that product, or you're on the top. You are on a roll and you are doing amazing. And the universe is, the energy exchange. You are receiving abundance just as much as you are of service. How do you feel? How do you embody that version of yourself? What are you wearing? What do you look like? What does your confidence look like? Are you standing tall? Like, and then quantumly, you are then stepping into that version of you that you envision. You're automatically raising your core vibrational frequency, and you are that version of you. And then you just literally take on that persona for the highest good, and you flow with that.
And you basically automatically everything transforms into that because now you're taking that as if it's the what we call Neville Goddard always says living in the end, right? And
Yeah.
so you're living in that transformation has occurred, and when you live as if it does, and it gradually all manifests in that way. Uh,
Yes. You just are. It just is
you,
who you are.
you are. It's like the thing that's so beautiful about it is that it's quite simple. We have a tendency to want to overcomplicate things, but when you just get down to the very simple premise that it is and that's how it works, and you just accept that reality, that is the reality.
Yeah. And I really wish that I actually recently has been a time in my life where a lot of memories surrounding my grandfather are coming through. And I feel like he always told me these things when I was 16, but I didn't listen. I wasn't listening. So I feel like obviously that was meant for my journey to be so, but I appreciate it very much now, and I never take it for granted. So I feel like for anybody when they get to that point in life where it just clicks and it makes sense, hold on to that and embody that and
Mhm.
treasure it always because it is the truth. And when I mentioned like the theological aspect of my life, I'm still a Eucharistic minister. I still am heavily involved in my church's choir. My children are in religious ed, and while we're not very religious, because I do understand the quantum and everything that I do, I am fully embraced in who I am, and I feel like a lot of fear in individuals has to do with upbringing and religious background. And again, going back to all of that, we can just shed those layers. We can get to, I always say, to know thyself is to love thyself, is to heal thyself. And that just has to do with, like, I think shedding those layers and deprogramming the subconscious, because we do still have this mind tool that's in our physical body. So long as we can access the quantum while subconsciously reprogramming and decoding, then I always like to say our little telomeres, our DNA, like they start growing again and they start getting bigger and bigger, and our longevity is back and our health is back. And um, you can believe in so many things. You can go to church and do the woo woo and quantumly heal, and you can still still just flow with life and all is well. It doesn't have to be either or. It's not black or white.
I love that. It's another great saying is they say their imagination and reality, or they say the subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between what is real and what is not because there is no difference. You create your reality.
Yeah.
So, like, and you scripted that out so well when you said, when you took us through that visualization of that quantum, growth or that quantum leap into being the person that you want to be. Because when you live it and you become it, it's present in that moment that you decide that that's who and what you are. And I love the fact that you're bringing this all out because this is the kind of information that we all have the ability to utilize and to take on. And, although that's true, and it is very true, I always, because I deal a lot with people that have illnesses or different issues going on, and the opposite is also true as well, where if you keep reprogramming or playing a record that there's trauma and there's all these issues with the body or whatever it is, you're basically maintaining that status and keeping yourself in that state as well. And it's just as easy to switch out of it, which I always like to do a little finger clip. It's easy to switch out of it, but it takes that 1 minute or that 1 second where all of a sudden all this information clicks. And then all of a sudden you're like, wow, I am in control of my own destiny. And I don't want to play this record that I'm broken down or I'm this or I'm that or anything else. I want to write a new script, and the new script is me, and I am this amazing person, and I've got this going on, and I look great, and I'm dressed nice, and this is now my reality, and I'm living in the moment, and that moment is now present, and now this reality is present tense. It's not future, it's not past, it's present tense. I think one of the things that we have a hard time doing is living in the moment.
Mm.
And one of the things that I have really started maintaining and doing, and it's random, it's not pre-programmed, is I just take a break and go, wow, I need a minute of gratitude. I want to be grateful that I'm sitting at this desk. I want to be grateful that I'm hanging on my call right now and I'm getting to meet Allison. And I want to be grateful that, I live in a loving, caring environment with good people and that, and so there's like I don't need, anything in the future in the past, but in this moment right now, I'm going to just be super grateful and just express gratitude and try to be as loving and compassionate as I can to those around me. So, I think that all these things that you're saying are so beautiful. And I think, sometimes people might need to hear it 5, 6 times, and sometimes people can hear it in an instant and immediately understand that and go, yes, this is the message that I need to be hearing right now. This is the person that's delivering this message. And there's nothing that needs to be added or subtracted in any given moment to enter into that reality. Everything that is needed to enter into that reality is present at the moment you decide you're ready to jump into it.
Yes, I so agree. And actually, that's why I can't judge anybody. Why
Mhm.
I can never come from a place of judgment because I can't tell you how much money I spent, how many retreats I went on, how many healers I tried to find and heal me. Until it clicks, it's not going to work. And I still remember my like just this one day where I just said, like you said, this is not my story anymore. Like I had my cane in my hand. I was trying to like carry groceries. I come in the house and I just felt like this overwhelming of like, this doesn't have to be my story. And all the years, all the money, all the everything, and just in one now, it just clicked. And that's all it takes. So I always tell people like have like it's one thing to not totally have it click, but you can listen, right? You can try and learn. And you can try and give have grace for yourself, because I still, I'll admit, like if I don't keep up with my physical therapy and my Pilates and my movement medicine and my meditation and my breath work, if I'm not eating the way that I should properly, like I will go into a flare up. And how do I get out of that? I as I tell my son, I open my toolbox and I take out my tools and I keep moving forward.
That's it. I
Yeah.
love that. I love that. That's such a great analogy. I want to talk a little bit about the Reiki,
Okay.
because I've got friends of mine that are also gifted like you are in many different realms. I feel like when you're dealing with Reiki, you also have skills kind of being a medium. You have like there's synergistic things that kind of come with that. But one of the terms that another friend of mine, Dawn, talks about is cutting the cords and the cord cutting, which I find that term very, very fascinating. And she'll like, we'll be doing a reading and she'll be looking at me. Now, I haven't really had any cords to cut, but there's other friends of mine that also talk with her. And they're like, oh, yeah, we need to cut this cord. And she's like moving around. And I don't know if she's talking light language and, da 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 da. And I'm not just, and I love it. But talk a little bit about what that is, what those chords are, how they kind of bring us down or kind of hold us back a little bit. Can you get a little detail kind of about that?
Of course. So cord cutting is also like one of my favorite things to do. The universe will never let you cut a cord that is not for your highest good. So don't be frustrated if you're trying to cut a cord and it's not fully severing. So Reiki just means universal life force energy. So your friends and myself as the Reiki practitioner. So I'm a Reiki master. I'm also a psychic medium. So I'll actually be doing readings later tonight in Staten Island. So um, when you are doing Reiki, we are trained as practitioners to we are the channel. It's not Alli, it's not your friend Dawn, right? It's just we are the channel. And we open ourselves up to receive. And through that, we receive the Palmer energy through our hands. And it's very similar as other people, train in hands on healing or light touch energy healing, whatever it might be. And the idea is that you are working with the chakras, you are working with the aura as a Reiki. Every time you level up in training. So at Reiki master level, you can then perform psychic surgery. So there's different avenues. So cord cutting is just one of those. So cord cutting, I actually do. I do both in Reiki and with the Akashic journeys and guided meditations. And the reason being is because they're an easy visualization for people to grasp and to recognize. And there are such things as these cords, and we are corded, we are tethered to the universe. Always, we are always protected and tethered. So there are these additional cords that may signify, some people refer to it as karmic patterns for your parallel or past lives, things that you have to break the cycles to usually, but also it could be traumas. It could be connections to others, another individual that you need to or are ready to cut ties with. So referred to as life contracts, soul contracts. I'm sorry. So soul contracts, meaning that sometimes people are in general, think about all the people that have come in and out of your life, and they serve a reason and a season, right? They always teach us a lesson, whether good or bad. They teach us about ourselves, and we are just mirror images of each other's deepest wounds. So we are learning just a little bit about everything through each person that we come across, and whether we like it or not, we are learning. And so if it is a cord that you feel is holding you back, if it is a relationship that you feel that you need to cut ties with, then by all means call in your angels and your guides. I usually call in Archangel Michael, as he is our greatest protector, as well as Archangel Raphael, our greatest healer. And we call them in, and I utilize sound healing as well for that 1, 2, 3 cut. So you can use a golden scissor. Some people utilize like knives, or if you've ever seen like an actual knife, like there are in metaphysical shops. You can buy a knife, a sword, crystals that are cut into knives. You can utilize whatever you wish to use. So it is the idea that you are severing this cord, you are watching it fall, dissipate, remove from your auric field, remove from your energetic field, and is no longer a part of you. And what I also utilize with cord cutting is forgiveness. So Desmond Tutu, his book of forgiving is one of my favorites that I hand to clients. And I always say you can do all the energetic clearing. We can cut the cords. That's the quantum way of doing it, right? These things are still going to come back. These emotions may still come up. It's not that this person's never going to come back into your life again, or this situation's never going to come back into your life. It was an avenue to cut that contract so that you're no longer energetically tied to them. However, there's still that aspect, I'm sure, of needing forgiveness of thyself and others. So for me, it's like it's always looking within, for always talking about forgiveness, because forgiveness also is an energy that can stay within us. I'm sorry, lack of forgiveness is also an energy that can build up and stay within us, right? And forgiveness does not mean to forget what the other person did. We still have to hold them or ourselves accountable if it's a matter of forgiving ourselves. And that is also like a second layer to the cord cutting that I like to include, if that makes sense.
Makes total sense. So what are some of the things that would cause a cord? Like what are cords? Like would it be like emotional trauma or things? I know that you can get into sort of spell casting. Maybe there's some of that comes through once in a while. But where do the cords primarily, what are they? Is it past life trauma? Is it
It could be
like what?
all of the above. Yeah, it can be
Yeah.
tied to emotional trauma, little t's, big t's. It can be tied to relationships. It could be tied, like I said, the past life or the parallel life correlation. It could be tied to a current breakup or a divorce. It can be tied to a death of an individual, somebody that you had a huge soul tie here to, a huge contract with, but you need to like move on. It really is about just you need to move on and no longer holding yourself prisoner to this cord, I suppose. And I always I enjoy for the I guess evidence-based aspect, like the research aspect, because I'm always like I love nothing more than like just hearing other people's experiences and journeys, and it just always fascinates me. So I always like to find out like what does the cord look like, what color is it, and sometimes that can have what material is it, because sometimes it can be a gold cord and it can just be like a sparkly gold cord and one that doesn't look bad, but you just know that it's something that you need to cut ties to. There can be other cords where people describe them as like chains and shackles and like this negative connotating energy to it. So it's always very interesting. That vibrational frequency tie to the cords, but it can very well be really anything.
Wow. Really amazing. So I have to ask you this because when you're multi-talented, right, and you're a psychic, a medium, Reiki master, how, and I know Dawn has had this experience as well. You get somebody on that comes on the phone. They say, I need cord cutting. I need a Reiki session. And then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, but somebody's here that I also wants to talk to you, or I'm picking up something else that I need to just shift into for a minute and address. Like when you're that versatile with that many skills, even though they might come from one perspective, you might have to shift gears and go, okay, I'm picking up this feeling, or I'm feeling this, or let me just address this real quick and talk about this, and then we can get back to that. Like, how often does that happen with your clients where that you kind of shift gears and other things kind of come into the readings or to the sessions?
On the Reiki table, always. On the
Hmm.
Reiki table, I'm an open channel. So I'm like all over the place. I just, as I tell the client, like, I'm just going to tell you what's coming through. I'm going to tell you who's coming through. A lot of times it varies on what part of the body I'm over. When I'm by the feet, I pick up a lot of past life things. When I'm by the hips, as that's our psoas and where we harbor a lot of emotion, I pick up a lot of trauma around that area. So I'm always like, and then there's people coming through and ancestors coming through. So that's all over the place. However, I will say when I am guiding a quantum healing journey, a guided meditation, and we are in someone's records, and that is all you. That is all. I'm just the guide in bringing you to your sacred Akashic zone. So I am just the one to get you to get all of the information from your own guides. And that, so actually, to preface, I'm doing a 5-day psychic challenge, a free 5-day psychic challenge, June 2nd to 6th. I'm totally not marketing myself, but this is relative.
No,
So
you need to. That's awesome.
okay, the reason being is because I want people to know that, like, I mean, many people come to me, all walks of life, whether they're spiritual or not, and I am guiding them into their soul's record, and they are open to receiving and shifting, right? These spiritual beings having human experiences are shifting when they come and they go, they know nothing about the Akashic realm, and then I open that up to them, and then their healing just comes too, right? So, and these are people who have never even thought that they were psychic, never had. So the reason that I'm teaching this challenge is because it's kind of just like the avenue to that, like noting your senses, like what you're seeing, what you're hearing, what you're feeling, what you're smelling, what you're tasting, being an empath in general. So many people I hear say, I consider myself an empath. Well, you are perceiving energy, you are feeling, you are psychic. And it took me a very long time to be comfortable with utilizing that word because of my church background. So psychic just meaning to be in tune with your esoteric, your senses that are not able to be seen by the naked eye, but you can feel, you can hear. We all do. We smell, we hear, we feel, we see. Anybody can tap into that. And then once you get comfortable discerning what is fear from intuition, and then once you get a like hone in on each of your psychic senses, then you realize that, like, hold on a second, I can do this for myself. I can answer the questions that I've been seeking for so long if I just shut off the mind, open the heart, and go within. I don't know. That's how I see it. Yeah.
I love that. So there's just so many things. I think we're gonna have to do multiple calls today because I got so many questions.
Anytime.
But so, one of the other things I really love to talk about are the Akashic Records, right? Which technically is all knowledge, past, present, and future, right? It's like a hall of a library where all this data, all this information is stored. And, we've talked about it on other podcasts. And, you know, I think that I think that everybody's kind of getting to the point now where they started understanding that and that you can enter in this Akashic field and access this library. And we all have the ability to do that. Although I always get back to our operator manual and somehow we didn't get one. So nobody's really clear, what chapter do I find entering into the Akashic records? Like where, like
So
I don't
true.
remember. Allison, I don't remember that course in school, and perhaps I went to the wrong school. But, and the funny thing is, in all honesty, if we get into Vedic stuff, which we're both into, in Vedic knowledge and Vedic literature and in those cultures, that is kind of taught as a basic part of your life is, some of these mystical sciences and how you utilize some of these spiritual gifts that we really I feel like in modern society and in Vedic society, they always say that the West is the most advanced society when it comes to anything that has to do with living and wealth and all those different things. But from a spiritual standpoint, we're definitely not on the same level as we are from a financial and industrial standpoint of development. But talk about the Akashic records and talk about the process of entering into that and how somebody could possibly do that and kind of that whole experience of what that's like, because I have yet to enter into the Akashic Records,
You
although
haven't. Oh,
I would love to just swan dive in there and maybe not come back and get all this great information. But I just want to hear it from your perspective because it's very exciting. And this is the part I feel like that's enlightening for people is to also know that they have access to get into these realms and gather knowledge. So maybe you could share a little bit about that.
of course. And anytime I will guide you into your records. So anytime you need. So when I guide other people, I wish I could just like guide you guys through right now. That might take a little bit, but the idea is that we want to shut off our minds and open the heart. We want to be grounded, connected, and protected. So we want to make sure that we are grounding our energy. We are connecting with Mother Earth, Father Sky, with the angels, our guides, that we are keeping away the lower astrals, the negative entities, and any AI negative interference. And I always have myself or others visualize a pyramid being within a golden pyramid. So pyramid is protection, right? A pyramid, Tesla. So just the shape of the sacred geometrical shape of a pyramid. Our universe is made up of three shapes, and it is a triangle, a circle, and a square. And that is it. And so I was taught to visualize being within a pyramid, dropping into a square, and then dropping into a sphere. And this was my ultimate protection. And then visualizing at the top of the pyramid a lotus flower opening and a central column of light coming down through the universe, coming down through all the way through your crown, down through your root, all the way through your feet, down into Mother Earth. And then you literally, like an elevator, you allow your consciousness. Now, this is when you are in a state, you are not in your thoughts, you are focused, and you are meditating, and you are up and you are consciously astral traveling up and out of your physical body, up through the top, through the sphere, through the square, through the top of the pyramid, through the lotus flower, and you're going up into the stars, up into the sky, up into the planets. And then I have people visualize as you're floating about, as you're ascending through the sky, then you visualize a bright white light. We open the records utilizing a full name. I've also learned in other areas you can open it with a sacred om, but really just going in through that light, trusting that light, that is yours. And then you go into it, and everyone has a different safe space, their soul retrieval space, right? So in shamanism, it's a soul retrieval, that multi-dimensional aspect. And so, for example, mine, when I go in, I have a giant tree. I have like a little pond with a waterfall, cascading waterfall. I have what looks to be where my library is, where my records are, is a church. It's like it's a very like glass greenhousey looking church. So everybody has a different, you have your spirit animals like roaming around, you call in your spirits and your guides. But mostly I guide you into going into your library, picking up a book that's in there, the record of everything we've ever said, thought, done, in our entire lifetimes. So, and for me, many lifetimes, I'm in a state in my life where recently I'm like, okay, but it's not linear. So maybe they're all happening at the same time, right? So you can gain access in these areas. So the idea is, for example, if I'm guiding a client to do inner child healing, I did inner child healing with a client on Saturday, and I guided her to a book from this particular time in her life. And we open that book, right? And I have the client, what does it say? What are the words? What are the messages for you? And this is why when I say like I'm guiding you into your Akashic record, I can't answer those questions for you. I'm not the psychic medium in that regard. Like these are for you to find out. So just guiding them in ways and okay, shut that book, put it back. That's no longer a part of you. Sometimes we delve further in and we go past the library and we go into that quantum embodiment of stepping into that higher power, seeing your successful self, and stepping into that version of you. Um, and really, it's just a place to, you can, again, cut cords in there. You can gain ideas from what I always say, you can gain ideas from what's for dinner tonight to what should my next business program be called. It really is just about trusting your soul to guide you and show you what you need to know in that now. It's all about that now. And then you give your thanks, always, 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 always giving thanks. And you return, you come back down through all the stars and the skies and the clouds, and you come back down into your body, reminding yourself that you are safe. It also helps to be able to teach you to discern what is your consciousness versus your ego in your body, I think. And yeah, and then the idea is that like you afterwards you journal about it and you write about it and just know that's a place you can return to anytime.
Wow, that is really beautiful. Yeah, that is something that, we don't get an opportunity. We don't hear so much about that, but to get in there and get that knowledge and be able to answer some of those questions is really pretty amazing. Does that get into past life stuff, or is that more of the quantum healing sessions?
That's more the quantum healing. So I
Yeah.
I I am not certified nor trained in guiding others through past lives. I've been the client multiple times. For me, the quantum healing is more you're meeting with your ancestors, your loved ones. You are trying to figure out the highest timeline version of you in this current life.
So talk to me a little bit about Embrace the Face. Where did that come from? How did you come up with that name? And give us a little bit of information about what that's all about.
Thank you for asking. So Embrace the Face came to me during my deep spiritual practice meditation years ago. And it started out, like I said, as a blog for my healing journey. And then when I actually walked away from the Social Security disability process, the SSDI, I had been approved and and then like there was like all this nonsense and I just didn't want to deal with it anymore. I didn't want to live my life collecting checks anymore. I felt that this was bigger than I. This idea of embrace the face, all I can say is that it's bigger than I. And it developed into I still utilize my nursing license and but I also now utilize it as nursing consulting. And that is my business quantum metaphysical ancient healing techniques, Reiki healing, psychic readings. I have monthly membership packages for psychic readings. I have a 3-month package for self quantum and ascension, like really getting to the deep and the darkest of what you need to heal. Evidence shows that in 3 months you can build a very new habit, a positive habit, and in 8 weeks you can completely rewire your brain. So I feel like offering people a 3-month package is like that ideal, really get to the nitty gritty and self healing and ascension. We do all quantum, metaphysical, ancient healing techniques, a lot of Akashic journeys, just to bring you clarity in who you are, what you're meant to do in your life. And then I do speed readings at restaurants, so psychic readings. What else do I do? I work in a ketamine IV clinic once a week for mental health and chronic pain. Kind of my umbrella. I'm holding a retreat in Jamaica, Ocho Rios, Jamaica in January of 2026. We're going to be doing quantum metaphysical ancient healing techniques in a private home, a luxurious home on the Caribbean Sea, 4 nights. There's also an option for a round of golf at Sandals Upton Spa. We're going to tour a ganja plantation tour. So cannabis has also been a heavy healing modality in my life. I utilize it medicinally, and I credit it to getting me off a lot of my pharmaceutical medications. So, um, what else? I just embrace it all, embrace the face of humanity, so that you may see all you are meant to be.
That's such a beautiful story. So I have to ask this question. If you don't go through the alcoholism, if you don't go through the postpartum, if you don't deal with all the things in your life, we don't have the same Allison here. Like, you know what I mean? Like I'm kind of going back to a little bit of what we spoke about earlier, but I just feel like, all those experiences, as rough as they are when you're dealing with them, they do mold you. Like there is a point where you do come out the other end, and then just out of curiosity, looking back, do you appreciate, some of the hard times that you went through to get you to where you're at now? Because once again, I really feel like, it's a necessary part of growth, and maybe there's something there that just you needed to kind of experience. But now that you've come through that, talk to me about how you feel that that's molded you into the person you are today.
I am so grateful for my path. I have never had regret. Something about who I am, my soul, will not allow me to perceive regret. I've never been like that. Could I have done things differently? For sure. Um, but yeah, and there's a lot more to it. Like through all that, my husband and I were separated and signed our divorce papers and got back together and like did all this deep healing, and we are thriving now 12 years later. So no regret. It is who we are, and we have both evolved and broken cycles for our children. um, and we're both working to give back to humanity in ways that we know how. And yeah, no regrets. And it's literally like you said. I guess I wouldn't be me. I wouldn't be this version of me. Do I question who I am? Like, what am I doing with my path? Yeah. Like, how did I get here? I thought I was just going to be a trauma nurse my whole life. At 21, I was just a little ER trauma nurse. That was it. Could have done. Thought I would have done that my whole life.
The reason I bring that up is that I feel like it's so important because in life, you have these moments where you're just in a bad space, or you're dealing with stuff that's heavy. And it's kind of the process of life where you have to deal with that. But I think the number one thing that's basically a life preserver to kind of pull you out of that ocean of despair is hope, and the life raft of hope, and that just going, wow, you know what? Here's a person that's really got her act together, that's really out there doing good in the world, that's really got everything going for her. But, like it didn't just happen like that overnight. Like there's a journey, there's a story. And I feel like for people out there that are dealing with different hardships, whether it's loss or, all different types of things, to have somebody like yourself that has a story that's telling people, hey, you know what, it will get better, it does get better, and you will pull through this. But having that light, or that little life preserver that gets thrown out, that hope life preserver that says grab on and everything's going to be okay, and you start that process and that journey of finding your way back to land. And so I think in life, all of us at some point get a little bit lost at sea, is kind of a good analogy. And it's just the nature of life, and it's meant to be that way. I think sometimes, all the hardships are the greatest learning lessons, but the sad part is you don't pick that up while you're dealing with it. You kind of pick that up after you've kind of gotten yourself back on solid ground. And sometimes, if you can look at the things that you're dealing with, and acknowledge that although this is very unpleasant, there will be a day when I will pull through this, and I will be on the other side of the rainbow, so to speak. That's why I love hearing that, because I feel like that is very reassuring, especially coming from somebody like yourself that's really a service to others modality, right? You have the service to self and the service to others, and you've swan dived into the service to others part of it. So being so compassionate and loving, because you need that energy to really truly do what you do. So I find that very refreshing, and I find that very empowering for people out there watching our podcast today. A couple things that I'd like to finish up with. I know you also talked about DNA repair and some other things. Is there anything you want to talk about maybe that are things that we can do that'll help us with repairing DNA?
Oh, I love it. So great question. So visualization. Visualization is key. Visualizing all your cells healing. I'll just say off the bat, Dr. Joe Dispenza is a huge credit to a lot of my visualization and healing. Another huge credit that I like to tell people about are the blue zones with Dan Buettner. So they touch on a lot of DNA repair and healing in regards to what we eat and our purpose and our mentality. And there's something in particular. Dr. Alberto Villotto, he has a book called "To Grow a New Body." Um, and I'm just touching on like all of these because Dr. Alberto Villotto talked about autophagy. And when we fast for long enough, typically it's like 3 days. When we fast for a long enough period of time, our those telomeres and our DNA go into like autophagy. That you like to do the little the
Yeah,
snap.
I
So
love that.
they switch. There's something autophagy puts your DNA into a repair state versus a degenerative state. So even if just for like 3 days, you detox your body, you let yourself feel a little hungry, you embrace it for its healing nature and power. That autophagy state can be a catalyst to your true mind, body, spirit healing. Other things like the blue zones we'll talk about once you can get to that point of turning on those healing receptors, then those telomeres can start to grow as you do the work per Dr. Joe Dispenza or live the lifestyle per Ayurveda or the blue zones. And the blue zones show that, you wake up with a sense of purpose and you're moving and you're eating and community and um, just all the things. So there are so many factors with DNA genetic healing, but I feel like the intuitively what I'm getting to share is like the number one key factor is turning that autophagy on. So, and there's various ways to do it. Those are just the one example of Dr. Alberto Villotto that I remember offhand him talking about. And there's other things that you can do. Reiki, if you become Reiki attuned, you can become a Reiki level 1 attuned, and you can heal yourself, visualizing yourself. Genetics is, I feel like I like to tell people also that we carry within us 7 generations of DNA, our ancestral DNA. We are not our family or ancestry trauma or drama to carry with us. It doesn't define who we are. So that is another cord cutting exercise that one can do to rid of those long lineages of despair that are holding you back from living your high self, because modern science does not know about a large chunk of our DNA, right? So for all we know, it could be extraterrestrial. And what's interesting when you were talking about earlier about the Vedas, the it's so beautiful. It's such a beautiful culture. And when I learned why their faces are blue or green, the different gods, because they are deemed to be extraterrestrial. And that is what our DNA and our genetics are deemed to be at its very core. So I find all of that very interesting.
I absolutely love it. And, like in earlier days, they were so tuned in. Astral projection, like there was books on that. I don't know if you've ever read Autobiography of a Yogi. Uh,
Yes, I have.
the-
Yes, yes, yes. It's a
and,
long
and
one. It's a long one.
And now when I read that, that set me off into just like this universe of anything and everything's possible. And
Yeah.
then you get into the astral projection by location. I mean, all these what we call cities, right? All these mystic powers that we all like in India, that's just like going to college. It's like, hey, I'm going to hang out with some sadhus. We're going to go up in the Himalayas. We're going to do breathing, and they're just going to, because everything there is through disciplic succession. And you do have the Vedas, and you do have a lot of beautiful Vedic scriptures that do also give you a lot of information. But ultimately, you kind of find a guru or a sadhu that kind of takes you under the wings and kind of grooms you through the process, which many times half of that is dismantling your ego.
Yeah, that
You
ego death for sure.
dismantling the years of programming where everybody told you, no, this is not possible and you can't do this, and then switching it back on where it's 100% possible and you will be doing that.
Mhm.
So I think that, that whole thing is actually really wonderful. And um, I've been so blessed to, to have been able to have that as part of my life and
Amazing.
have those experiences. When you're working with clients, you do that through Zoom. You don't have to physically be present.
Do not have to physically be present. No.
Right. So you can basically book sessions on your website and then people can meet with you one-on-one.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
I love that.
Anytime. Yes.
AlliAnderson.com. And Alli, although our clients are the best in the world, our video editing is very basic. So on this call, what I do is I'll put your web address right below us. So during the conversation, people will have access to it and they can jump on and start looking at the website while we're talking. Today has been an absolutely brilliant conversation. You are an amazing person. I mean, like,
Mm.
you just have so much light coming through. It's like I just love to be around people like yourself because I find it very inspiring and very enlivening, and it just makes life so incredibly wonderful to be around people like yourself that are out doing so much good in the world with big, huge smiles on their faces and loving life. So, with all that being said, one of the things I always like to do is before we sign off, I always like to give the guest sort of a last words or any thoughts that come to mind or anything you'd like to say before we finish it up. And you will be back again. So don't feel
Oh,
like you gotta,
thank you.
yeah, it's anytime, every time, anything you have going on. I do want you to do that promo though. You said you had something coming up in June in New York.
Yeah, so it's virtual. It's a virtual 5-day free psychic challenge, an hour a day. It's a Monday to Friday. If you sign up, it's free. I'll send you the recording. If you can't make the live, it'll be on social media. Um, but yeah, it's all about just tapping in, tuning in, and fine tuning the skills that you need to remain resilient in this life.
Beautiful. Okay, give us some final thoughts or some last words before we go.
Okay, so my husband will tell you that nobody is harder on Allie than Allie. My whole life, I've been so hard on myself, always seeking self improvement, always trying to be a better version of myself. And when I finally came to and learned how to remain resilient, I do still feel the self doubt, right? Like I am a spiritual being having a human experience. And the reason that I share this is because I feel like a lot of people get lost in their spiritual path because they feel like their ego is still coming through and they're still questioning and they're still all I can say is because this is how I live my life, just remain grounded, connected, and protected. Give yourself grace, knowing that in each now, like you said, like taking that time out to just be grateful for everything that you have in that now. Remembering that we are all on a journey and we are all uniquely like fingerprints. We each have a unique fingerprint, unless you're an identical twin. We each have a unique blueprint, a soul blueprint. So don't compare yourself to other people because you are unique in your own way. Give yourself grace. Even on the days if you don't eat the way you're supposed to, or you have that drink and you didn't want to have that drink, or you took that medicine and you didn't want to take that medicine, like you are a beautiful soul and you are worthy. You were deemed worthy before you were born. And to remember that and to just live in flow and remain resilient. And I'm always here to help.
I love that. Alli Anderson, it's
Yeah.
allianderson.com for anybody that's out there. Alli, thank you so much for your
Thank
time today.
you.
It's
Thank you
greatly
so much.
appreciated. I'm going to sign off for everybody else, but stay with me for just a sec. We'll hang out for a minute before you go.
Of course.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Oh my, that was amazing. Thank you
That
so
was
much.
awesome.